Many people don't know how we do what we do. Many people think we are pretending when we're acting. I gotta tell you, the psyche doesn't know the difference between pretend and real. It has no concept of pretend and real. So you know what you're going to feed into your psyche, what you're going to feed from the imagination into the psyche. You put it in, you load it in. You load in that program, right? But once the program is loaded in and it clicks, there's no pretend because the body has no language for pretend. The psyche has no language for pretend. It is real.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Lorraine Toussaint is an actor. She sat down with me in New York City to talk about the work. After you land the role, what's your first step in the process? Do you have a typical first step?
No, I don't have a typical first step. I have a first step. When I land the role, it's because I've already decided that this is my next love affair. And so, like in the beginning of most love affairs, you step in and you start getting to know the person, right? And so each one is different. Each one is different, but there is an internal shifting of the tectonic plates that starts to happen right away, that I start moving the plates around internally to intuitively start bringing some things to the surface, sort of putting certain other things into the background, aspects of the self. At the end of the day, each role features an aspect of my being, right? And my job as an actor is to become very facile and very familiar and well-versed, in fact, with all the aspects of the self, so that as I go rooting around going, okay, who's going to drive the car in this one? I go this one, a little bit of this, and oh no, not that one. It's like cooking. I pull up this ingredient and that ingredient, and then I start internally playing with the combinations of ingredients. Generally speaking, before I go in for the specific kind of work with the script.
Continuing your analogy, are all of the ingredients in your kitchen? You're basically saying that they're all there and you figure out which ones to put in the pot. You don't have to go out into another, you don't have to go to the store and get an ingredient. Am I taking this analogy?
There is no store.
But like some people might say, like somebody like you even said this with V. You said, I had to put some aspects of myself forward and put other aspects of myself on the back burner. Uh-huh. With V, the shadow self was driving the car.
Yeah.
Another actor might say, I don't have any bit of V in me. I had to go and get it from somewhere. You know what I mean? But that doesn't make sense to you, right?
Not only does it not make sense, I don't think it's possible.
So even the psychopath ingredients are in you, just like they're probably in me.
Of course. Mm-hmm. A long time ago, I made an agreement with myself that I was going to explore all of the self. I was going to reveal all of myself to myself for the purpose of embracing all of the self, loving all of the self, because that's my personal credo. I don't want to hide any aspect of myself. I don't want any aspect of myself living in shadows, right? Shadows have power. And at the end of the day, I want the power. I want the power over the self. even the mystery aspects of the self. The fact that there is mystery in me doesn't mean that it is unexplored, right? So I don't believe there is any place else I can go for the work. Where am I going? Am I going to try to climb into your psyche? Or am I going to try to climb into someone else's emotional body? I can't. As human beings, we only have, we see only through one lens, which is of the self. It's a very subjective lens. We don't have a choice. We're in body, we're in this body, and part of the good news, bad news of that is that we perceive the world from this lens, right? Doesn't mean that you can't broaden this lens as much as you humanly can, and that's the job of the artist. But there's no place else to look. I can trigger aspects of the self externally, but I'm just triggering it. I can trigger it visually, and I do trigger aspects of the self when I approach a piece of work. I will identify what aspects I want to trigger. If I can't immediately access it, I will start experimenting with what triggers that. Music, on a sensorial plane, I start to trigger it. Scents, tastes, music. I'm very visual. I begin to collect. I'll pull things from books and magazines, and I'll create a file. I'll create files of visuals and they may be odd, unusual visuals that I try not to censor. I try not to censor when I'm doing this kind of work.
But they mean something to you. And they trigger something.
They trigger, right? So how much can I trigger is also important.
Right.
You know?
And
triggering early memories, early stimuli, early psychic memory is really always helpful.
When you say
Those
early, you
are
mean early in your life, or
early
in
my life.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes early in the early ones usually have the most power.
Right, that's what they say. Yeah, yeah. In sense memory.
If you're talking technically, sense memory is a great tool to open up the instrument early in the training, right? It's fine, and it's good to have it in the bag of tricks,
Tools,
of tools. But I have found that sense memory is I don't play with sense memory much. I'd much rather be in this moment than in some other moment. It's how do I trigger it in this moment, in this room, with you right now.
Right. Sticking with this though, for a second, what happens when you're in the moment with an actor and it's just not working? Either because of the environment that the director has created or because of the other actor. What's your tool to combat that?
A couple of things. You hope that the actor that you're working with is in the scene with you, right? You hope that the director has created a safe space where this work can happen. There are things that I will insist on I now know enough about my instrument that it's helpful, and no, not even helpful, I'm not even gonna lie, it's crucial to have certain things. On a set, for example, anybody behind the lens has got to go away. You got to go. If you don't belong behind the lens, and if you're sitting behind the lens with a phone that you're texting while you got to go. So that anything in my line of vision, other than the person I'm meant to be dealing with, has got to go away. I find that hair and makeup team, it's best when they're very sensitive. I call it the holy circle, which is right before action. Those last 2 minutes, those last 3 minutes, I have already begun to work. So the person stepping in needs to be fully aware of that, right? I am disappearing and absorbing the camera and the essential people on set. I've now swallowed them inside of me, so that by the time you say action, there is no other thing in the room that is not intimately a part of me. So then it makes the revealing and being present easier. Then at the end of the day, I try to not deny any truth, including the moments where you go, oh God, this is not working. This is even the moments where you feel like I'm so not connecting to this person. There's something really valuable about incorporating that in the scene. And if the less you deny the reality of where you are, the better it is, right? So the less I superimpose some expectation, the better. Do I sometimes need to start over I can feel when I've gone off the track in a scene, right? And usually that's because I've stopped playing something specific, I've stopped being absolutely present with you, and I've actually something has stopped me from actually being in this room, not a room in my head, not a room of my expectations, but actually just simply this room with you. I've done my homework. I know what I want. I know what I'm hoping to get. I'm hoping, I know the scene. I've broken it down. I know the beats. I know I have a sense of where the transitions are, and then I let it all go, and I want to just play. I just want to play and be with you, and be surprised. I want to be surprised by what happens in the scene. Continuity has to take photos of you, right?
Yeah.
To document, what rings you're wearing. Right. Wardrobe is taking photos as to what is the tie knotted high? Is it knotted low? Is that belt to the front, to the side? And they're
anxious to get this done really quick.
And
before
they are
you move
anxious
anything.
to get this done very quick. And I'm a little bit of a bitch on wheels when it comes to that, because. But I do it really kindly. I'll say, no, you may not take a photo of me. And it is disconcerting. But I always take the time at some point, hopefully before we start shooting, before I say no, to say, once I'm getting ready to shoot, my entire part of my focus is to disappear cameras. It is to remove self-consciousness, to be completely unself-conscious. And that means that my job is to move more fully and completely into the subjective. The more I can live in the absolute subjective, the better it is. And when I am making that crossover, if someone comes up to me with a camera to click and take photos of every aspect of my being, it's like flashbulbs going off in my psyche. Stop doing that. I can't do what I need to be doing right now if you're taking photos of me. I'm disappearing all cameras. Don't come in my face with a camera. I swear I'll give you every photo you need. Not when this is the holy circle. And many people don't know how we do what we do. Many people think we are pretending when we're acting. I gotta tell you, the psyche doesn't know the difference between pretend and real. It has no concept of pretend and real. So, what I feed my psyche, that's where the actor has the choices. You know what you're going to feed into your psyche, what you're going to feed from the imagination into the psyche. You know what you're feeding. You put it in. You load it in. You load in that program, right? But once the program is loaded in and it clicks, there's no pretend. Because the body has no language for pretend. The psyche has no language for pretend. It is real. So if you know that, you just need to know how and what combinations and how to load it in a very particular way. Because once you load it in, it's going to come out at you real. Right. And so the trauma happens in the mind and the psyche. The trauma happens in the body. The trauma happens on every level of the being, because I'm not pretending. I'm actually facilitating an actual full experience and allowing it to be captured. And so there is care that has to be taken on many levels, because I am now literally going through the death of that person. Literally, I'm going through that cancer. I've told my body this. And so as an actor, depending on the role, I've also got to make sure that I flush that out of my psyche, my emotional body, my physical body, my psychic body, my subtle bodies. All of it, I've got to, my being will tolerate the trauma that I ask of it if I allow it to move through me.
It's got to come out.
I've got to come out, and I've got to take care of the instrument too, so that you can, you heal it, you feed it, you give it parameters. We're going to be doing this for a short period of time. We're not going to be living here, okay? I'm not going to live in this much loss. I'm not going to ask you to, and I say this to my being, I'm not going to ask you to process this loss for extended periods of time, but I do need you to fully embody it for these short periods of time within parameters.
Now, this brings up a lot of questions but I have to be selective here. On a set, it would be irrational to expect everybody on the set to understand what you just said and what your process is, what you're going through. But there is one person who it's not irrational to expect, and that's the director.
There's more than one person.
Well,
I do have an expectation of this. I actually have an expectation of this.
Who else do you expect to understand?
Everyone in the room when I'm working. I have a complete and absolute expectation of this. You may not understand what I'm doing,
Yeah.
but you must recognize that it is something holy.
And respect it. Yeah. And respect it. Yeah.
And it is not something casual.
Yeah.
And it is not something that I can turn on and turn off like a light switch.
Mm-hmm.
I expect that.
I'm sure that you've.
You're trying to get out of this somehow, aren't you?
No, I'm saying I'm sure you've even come upon directors, though, that don't even understand this, though.
There are directors, but you can very simply tell them what you need. I can say I listen, I'm now middle-aged and I've been at this for 30 years, and I can actually now say to a director, please don't talk about my process. Or a director will come up and start to speak a language that is actory.
Yeah.
And it's irritating.
Yeah.
I want a director. I actually want a director, unless you are really well versed in this. Number one, you as a director, it is incumbent on you to take a couple of acting classes to learn the language of actors.
Yeah.
And the language of actors is a very different language. It's a very different language, right? Don't tell an actor how wonderful the scene was. Do not ever tell an actor how great a moment was while they're still shooting it. Again, it's like bringing a camera in my face when I'm trying to, because the whole point is that to be unself-conscious. Mm-hmm. It's better to use action words with an actor. Mm-hmm. It's better to use verbs with an actor than adjectives. Mm-hmm. If you're choosing adjectives, choose them wisely, right? But give me a result. This may not be true for all actors, mind you, because there are young actors who will try to play a result, who will try to act a result. But actors like myself, if you give me the result you want, I know how to translate that.
You got to translate it in yourself, away from,
And when the director is often speaking to me, I won't even look at them because I'm listening with a different part of my
You're
brain.
letting the translator talk to you. Right?
I'm letting the translator is talking because they're putting it into the translator, and I have to I'm listening to the translator because usually I have all of 30 seconds to make these adjustments. I don't have time to assuage an ego.
Right.
I have to actually give you what you want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I will often say to the director, fewer words, less is more with me. I will often go, I got it. Stop talking.
Yeah.
Got it. Because the time you're taking to explain, I need to shift and prepare. I need to shift the gears ever so slightly because they're not result gears, they're process gears. Mm-hmm. I'm taking away a little bit of that sadness. I'm adding a pinch of hopefulness. I'm adding a pinch of humor. I'm adding a pinch. I'm delicately, in tiny amounts, making tiny shifts, right? So sometimes those tiny shifts they take focus. I'm extremely focused on set.
We have to talk about the Lorrainaissance that is happening. The Village, which is on TV right now, on NBC. And you got Fast Color opening up. And you got the Glorias, which you just wrapped, right? Mm-hmm. Having just wrapped something, this is a nice place to catch an actor. Can you briefly assess your experience, the expectations you had going in, what your experience was like for you and your work? That's what I mean.
This is an interesting question because the way in which I jumped into the Glorias is not ideal, and it was a little bit skitsy. I'm not sure I like this process, but it was a necessary process. I was shooting the finale of The Village, which was an emotionally wrought finale of the first season. And we wrapped on the Tuesday night, and I went straight from set to the airport. Flew to Savannah, got to Savannah at midnight, and was on set on the Glorias 7 o'clock the next morning in an extremely different character.
Wow.
Playing Patricia, dealing with what she deals with in the finale, big emotions, and then moving into Flo Kennedy, who cusses like a sailor, and she is provocative and evocative, and she is there to irritate, and she wears cowboy hats, and she's gender fluid, and she's a really long, sharp nails and false eyelashes, and really. And you add to that, she's a real character, she's a real person that people have known.
Right.
So after watching, hours of tape on her and trying to get a sense of her vocal rhythms and all of the technicalities, and her hair is very short, and though she's wigged, and preparing for those two in my head was interesting. I had a week's break from Patricia when I wasn't shooting, where I literally took Patricia like as a whole and put her on a side burner, and completely and exclusively focused on Flo Kennedy. And then like that last day or two, Flo has got to be percolating. She's percolating. She's right here, but it was an odd compartmentalization that had to happen so that I could be fully with Patricia, but still aware of an echo. It was like carrying a ghost on my back that just behind a very thin veil was Flo Kennedy. And the moment I wrapped Patricia, I just lifted the veil and she went, they just switched positions inside of me. That was weird. That's more skitsy than I care to work.
Yeah.
But it worked. It worked. It was a nice test to see, okay, you got to expand to hold two complete humans inside right now in full color.
Yeah. I heard you say once that you had I guess for V in Orange is the New Black, you actually did acupuncture to get rid of, part of your process to get rid of her.
No, I'm doing acupuncture now for Patricia. I do acupuncture for Patricia because acupuncture is very physical.
Right.
And I'm processing a lot of illness through my body and telling my body that it is ill and symptomatic, and putting myself in the space where there are many symptoms that go along with this particular illness. My body doesn't know I'm pretending. So I have been led to do quite a bit of psychological work, spiritual work, but also body work with this one. I do body work with this one. Every Sunday I go to acupuncture and she jabs those needles into me and releases energy that I could potentially be holding in my body.
A quote from you reads, "I am not separate from the art. I am the art." When I read that, something in me said, yes, I wish actors understood that more and embodied that. But can you talk about that at all?
Yes. I'm old enough now to not attach vanity or ego or anything to this phrase, but I'm an artist. And I'm an artist, and I don't mean in that airy-fairy bullshit way either. I tend to make art wherever I go, in whatever I do, and whatever I touch. So that the art of living is one with the art of acting, right? The extent to which I live fully and the extent to which I am fully present in my life, and I do believe there is an art to that, is the extent to which I can bring it into the many art forms in which I engage in my life. I love a beautiful bed. I'm very specific with the way I make my bed because I want to walk into the room and have it be beautiful. And it isn't necessarily magazine beautiful. It's what I consider to be beautiful. I make pretty food. I will cook with an eye towards beauty and balance and symmetry or lack of symmetry. I don't like odd numbers unless it's I don't like even numbers unless it's intentional. I like odd numbers because my sensibility likes threes and fives, and I'm very visual. I live like an artist, right? I raise my child with an artist's sensibility. I watch it, how it's being revealed in her. She will stop for a sunset. She will stop for a particular color that is an unusual vibration. I see through the eyes of an artist, right? That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I'm awake. I'm cussing awake. I'm awake. And I like being awake. And I couldn't imagine being asleep in a million years. And so I have lived consciously awakening myself. That part has been conscious. I think if I've been devoted to anything in my life, it's been to awakening and staying awake and seeing how much further awake can I be. And I play games with myself in the work that has nothing to do with probably what you're seeing. I will go through a period where it's about, for me, how little can I do. I play with magic. There is an aspect to an artist and an artist's work, and you'll know it, and we all know it, in any form, with the painter or a musician or a dancer, where the painting is painting you, or the dance is dancing you, or the song is the music. It's coming through you so powerfully. You just have to hold on. That you pray your instrument is not going to blow apart by this piece of music that's coming through you. It's the same as an actor. and how much now in my life can I get out of my own way? How much can I facilitate grace and magic and other things that are now dancing in this that are part of this creation, that as a younger actor I would be consciously doing and putting in place, much more of a control freak when it came to the creation of the work. And I was very good at that. But now I want to know how much I can take my hands off of it. How much can I do the craft? How much can I do the preparation? How much can I do the work, the background work? But mostly, how much can I facilitate myself to this other thing that happens when the work in moments becomes transcendent?
I need a part 2. Lorraine Toussaint, thank you.
Thank you
so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, my honor. Thank you.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of IFP, the Independent Filmmaker Project. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.